Okay, I've been moving the table for the last 5 minutes. I guess we're just going to have a creepy, glowing sort of look to tonight's program. That's a little better. I can work with that. Look at how the time has changed. The last time I was over here at Pottawatomie, we were kind of fighting the sunset in the background and the glare from that. And now sunset tonight was just a little bit after 7 p.m. So today was a little bit of a different day in that I had a meeting at 6:30. So I tried to get everything pulled together before that meeting occurred, but there was also some late breaking things that I wanted to share with you. So we'll see how the slides go tonight. I did take some pictures because I thought you guys would get a kick out of, especially the call I got about 4 o'clock today. So hang on, let's take a look at what's been going on here in the world of nature. All right. Okay. Can everybody see a big tortoise? I had a phone call this afternoon. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
It's a really big tortoise. Like, she weighed 65 pounds last spring and she's been eating all summer long. So I had a call this afternoon from our parks office about some questions about some things that were going on over at the dog park at Eastside Sports Complex. And we chatted a little bit about that. I hung up my phone, and 2 seconds later, the phone rang again. I didn't even look at who it was. I just answered, figuring it was the Parks Department. Well, it wasn't. It was the Park Safety Department. Slight distinction there. Officer Timmy T is what we call him, actually. Tim gave me a call. He said, you know, whenever I call you, it has to do with an animal, right? And I said, yeah, what do you got? And I figured I already knew what he was going to talk about. And he says, can you help with a tortoise rescue? Wasn't exactly what I thought he was going to say, but gosh, I love turtles. And I actually used to have a large tortoise. So I said, sure, I'll go ahead and see what I can do to help. Well, this was over on the east side of town off of Division, which is the street that divides Geneva and St. Charles. And some neighbors noticed this really big animal moving through the yard. These things, when they walk, it looks like a rock that's sprouted legs and is just moving at a pretty good clip. I think a lot of people misjudge how quickly turtles and tortoises can move. They figure they'll set them down somewhere, and then, you know, they look away for a couple seconds and then all of a sudden the thing's gone. Well, anyway, this thing, it was kind of cute. The neighbors whose yard it was in, I was standing there with a little plastic doggy waste bag, and she said that she had just cleaned up after it, which I guess you do when you have a big tortoise like this, although this was not her turtle. It wasn't even her yard, but she was the one who spotted the tortoise. Anyway, nobody in the area recognized the animal, and this is just a short distance up the hill from one of our Park District properties, Riverside Bowie Park, which is along the Fox River. It's a sad fact of parks and rec life, forest preserve life too. People sometimes, when they don't want an animal, they quote unquote give it their freedom, give it its freedom, and they take it to a park and they let it go. So we were working under that assumption, but there was also another neighbor who showed up who put an announcement on Facebook, you know, that this tortoise had been found. Well, the police had also responded, and I gave my name to the detective that had come from St. Charles, and then he said he would share it with Geneva. Well, and not even an hour later, I got a phone call from a very worried tortoise owner over on the east side of town. turns out, so the people who found this tortoise were calling it Morty for Morty the Tortie. But the woman who contacted me via the Geneva police said that this is actually Ding Dong. And Ding Dong is a Sulcata tortoise. They sometimes go under the name African spur-thighed tortoise, but Sulcata, I believe, is the more correct term. Gorgeous animal, and yes, quite heavy. The police officer had lifted the tortoise into my car, and then I didn't want to take it out to the nature center. I didn't think that would go over too well, because these things are basically like cows with shells. They eat grass, and they expel the remains of the grass that they ate day after day in large quantities. So my plan was to just put it in the backyard and then deal with it tomorrow. Maybe find a rescue group if it was indeed homeless. But as it turns out, its owners did come and claim it, and Ding Dong will, and her owners will hopefully live happily ever after. I did talk to them a little bit. I know we've got some turtle lovers in the group. I just said, so what do you do with a 65-pound plus tortoise when winter comes? Well, these folks actually modified their house, gave up their garage to carve it up into some living space for them, and then also an overwintering headquarters for little Ding Dong here, big Ding Dong here. All this is to say, people, if you see a really, really large animal like this, in this case, it's a tortoise. Sometimes people let large snakes go too. Anything for snakes, anything more than about 4 feet is not going to be native. With tortoises, we do have snapping turtles in this area, but the snappers are very dark. The large turtles that wild turtles, native turtles that we have in this area, their shells are flattened. They're aquatic in nature. This had a big dome to the shell, and no webbing on the feet. It looks like an animal that would live on land, as indeed it does. But anyway, that was the late afternoon fun at Good Natured World headquarters. And then as I was leaving the board meeting I was at, I thought, this is a great chance. We are in the midst of chimney swift migration, and I kept meaning to come over here to Pottawatomie at dusk to see how things are going over here at the pool building. So again, the chimneys that are prominent like this, that are uncapped and unlined, this is really vitally important to these chimney swifts, that our resident population uses them to raise their young, and then the migrating population uses them to roost as they make their way to South America. So I've seen chimney swifts going in and out of this chimney over the summer, and I was curious as to whether a chimney with a resident population would also host a migratory population. Now up in Elgin, a few of us went up to the roost that's on, it's at the corner of Gifford and Chicago on the east side of Elgin, and that had over 1,400 chimney swifts in it over Labor Day weekend. Marbury Cleaners here in downtown St. Charles, that chimney is active again with, I believe, over 1,000 swifts. There's a lot of uncapped, unlined chimneys in the area that are being used for migration. So anyway, the timing is perfect. I got out of the meeting in time, and our meeting wasn't going to start until 8. I had time to get over there about 15 minutes after sunset. So if you look up what time sunset is. Today, I believe it was 7:06 p.m. So about 7:20, I wandered over to the pool building. Well, actually, I took this picture right about 7 when there was still some light. I went back at 7:20, and you see that little dark form there? That's a chimney swift. a chimney swift. So there were not hundreds or thousands pouring into this chimney. I counted 8, which would be a family group. That would mean mom and pop and the 6 offspring from this year. So there are chimney swifts in the Pottawatomie pool chimney, but it's just a family. It doesn't appear to be a migration roost. Now,
Pam?
yes.
I remember telling you I was over there last.
Oh, that's right,
Wednesday.
during the softball game, and you saw more
Yeah.
than that.
Oh, a lot more, like
That's right.
about 200. You know,
That's right, Laura. I totally blanked because I was going to call on you for the next slide.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But no,
yeah.
that's right. You said you were there for the game and you saw. So
Yeah.
I guess those guys have all moved on.
Okay.
And this is about the same number I counted when I was over here when we had the ducks in the pool.
Okay. Yeah, there were most definitely a lot. Nobody wanted to stay with me and count them. But yeah, so maybe they've moved on. Yeah, there were a lot.
Okay.
It was really cool.
Okay. Well, Laura, you thanks for reminding me about that. So now that makes, there's another chimney over in my neighborhood that has a resident pair and young. And I counted there last year and I only ever counted just that family, but now I kind of want to go back there again and check and see, because I was starting to think, well, maybe, if it's occupied with a family, maybe they don't put the for rent sign out. But thank you so much, Laura, for reminding me of that.
Sure.
As well as telling us about, oops, gotta zoom back out on this one, about this place.
Oh.
So here we are at, this is the southwest corner of 3rd and Illinois Streets in St. Charles. And this is the shop for, it's funny, I even pictured this chimney as still being blue, but it is not blue. It was the Napa Auto Parts building for a long time. And then somebody else said they thought it used to maybe be a Firestone building, like even longer ago. I don't know if that rings a bell with anybody, but look at this, a prominent chimney, and it's uncapped and it's unlined. Laura, did you and Kate, did you say you counted?
Yeah, we had counted, and we were on our way home actually from Jerry's house in Chicago, and I said, oh my gosh, this is the right time, let's pull over. And they had already started going in, but they were definitely swirling, and we counted, we sat there for quite a while. I think some of the neighbors might have thought we were a little crazy, but 162. But
Okay.
it's really hard to, when they start going in several, one after another,
Yep.
It's hard to get a real accurate, but yeah, about 162.
Okay, well, so then you saw me sitting on the curb there.
Yeah.
And I thought I might have missed the beginning because I actually started over at Doc Morgan's at the old post office on 2nd Street, Route 31, and didn't see any activity there. So then I scurried over to the curb by this building and I counted 158. So
No, it's pretty close.
it's,
Yeah.
and I didn't remember the number that you had gotten. So yeah, haven't checked it this week. This was, what day was that last week? Thursday?
Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay, so,
Because I had my granddaughter with me.
oh, that's an adorable little Lou.
Coming back from Pottawatomie softball game where I had just seen all the chimney swifts. So
There we go. It's a
tie
chimney
it all
swift
together.
kind of a night. So apparently, yeah. So the Pottawatomie Swifts, those guys have already moved on.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have not checked this chimney this week. Swifts are 100% insectivores. They eat bugs all day long. So their presence here is dependent on the bug population. Now, I will tell you, when I first set up out here on the patio tonight, I was closer to the building because there was a plug over there and my laptop needed to be charged up. There were so many mosquitoes over
Ugh.
there that I moved over here where I know the spiders are eating them. But there are still a lot of bugs. In fact, did I hear 90s again? We're going to get it back up in the 90s
Yeah.
temperature wise. So I think that'll ensure a bug population for a while, which might ensure that our swifts are here for still a while longer. The King County Audubon is, I believe, having a second chimney swift sit. The chimney swift faction of the Audubon group. They had a great turnout last weekend at the Dundee Village Hall. And so they were going to do another one this weekend with a location still to be determined. So if anybody's interested in that, you can check the King County Audubon website or the Chimney Swifts over the Fox Valley Facebook page, or shoot me an email. And once I find out, I could let you know. Still that time of year for just a few more weeks. And speaking of bugs, so you can tell what day this was. It was the rainy day. On Monday, I was running some errands and there was this bug flying around. And honestly, I did think it was a mosquito because I get these glimpses of legs. And actually what I thought was that it was a mosquito that had bitten me because the body silhouette was hefty. You know, sometimes when a mosquito is had a blood meal, their body will enlarge and they have that bigger silhouette. So, but then it landed on the window and I could see the pattern on the wings. And now I don't know the species and there are several different types. I think we've talked about these guys once before. This is a long-legged fly. Their body, which I could not capture because of the lighting of the silhouette effect there on the window. They have an iridescent gold and green body. They're really quite pretty. And there are different species that are different sizes. This was one of the smaller ones that was more mosquito size. But I was really glad I didn't start flailing away and trying to kill it because long-legged flies are predatory flies and they eat, they're quite helpful to have around. So keep your eyes open. I see these around my compost pile a lot. And I think I took a picture of one of their larvae the other day. They're a neat subset of the flies in our area. You know, when I'm catching flies in the backyard for the little European mantis, which we'll get to that in a little while too, I always leave these guys alone because they're part of the team that helps us control some of the flies that aren't so helpful. And then, since we're talking about bugs, in your journeys out and about, if you find yourselves by water, especially if it's still water or water with a very low current, look for dragonfly skins, Exuviae. They are out in numbers right now. A lot of dragonflies that have spent this year and maybe even last year developing in the water are emerging, and they shed their skin one more time. If we zoom in here, we can see this part hanging down here. That's the wing pads. So the wings come out of there, those long dragonfly wings. Once they're out of that shell, then they can expand. The fluid courses through the veins and the wings expand, and then they go take off and go about their business of also controlling our insect populations. Bug versus bug. Here's a better view of, you can see the eyes here. They have these huge eyes, which of course are helpful in catching prey on the wing, a lot of what they eat. And they do eat a lot of mosquitoes. They catch it, they use their front legs kind of like a basket and grab those mosquitoes and eat them up. And they also, in the immature stage, when they're in the water too, they are feeding, well, they feed on a lot of things, but they will also feed on mosquito larvae. So extremely helpful. And this is just a really cool artifact to search for. They crawl up on the emergent vegetation on the sides of streams and ponds. So and looking, so this was actually, I was at a meeting over at Creek Bend, and the dragonflies were from that pond that's behind the nature center there. And this photo is too. I thought it can never hurt to go over our ID traits for some of our bigger frogs. This is a bullfrog, and we can tell it's a bullfrog by the way the fold of skin wraps around that circular marking right there, which is actually the ear, but it does not continue down the back. Here, with our green frogs, the fold goes down the back. So these two were, I would say they were a good 15 feet apart. They are the two largest species of frogs that we have in the area, but there is a lot of confusion because of the similarity of their markings. So this is one where you want to look beyond the markings as well as the color. Color is highly variable depending on the individual and what it's been up to. If it's been out of the water for a long time, it might look darker. But bullfrog and green frog. Leopard frogs, I think we've talked about them a few times. There was a lot of little, there were so many and they were so tiny, I didn't really get a good picture of any of them, but leopard frogs are the smaller frogs in this pond. And most of them were out foraging in the grass. These two, if they come out of the water, they don't tend to go very far unless they are going to another pond or stream. They've got a pretty big body that can catch a lot of wind, soak up a lot of sun, and dry out in a sort of a bad way. So they oftentimes will be found closer to ponds than most of the other frogs we have in our area. Walked along the edge of the pond a little bit farther, and here we have our orange jewelweed. Now, about, oh gosh, it was maybe back in July when I was out at Johnson's Mound. I'd taken pictures of the jewelweed there, and that was the yellow jewelweed, which here in Kane County, that's the more unusual of the two types that we see. This is the orange jewelweed, as you can tell by looking at the colors of the petals. And orange jewelweed, there's huge masses of it along a lot of our ponds, a lot of our streams. This one again is over at Creek Bend. I love the way the water was pooling up on the leaves of this plant. That's one of the stories of how jewelweed got its name, was the way the water beads up and it looks like there's diamonds encrusted on the surface of the leaves. Now, I'm going to try to play this video. If this doesn't work, I have another copy of it. Oh, it looks like it's going to go. So this is a plant. It's one of a few plants in this area that also have the nickname Touch Me Not. So those flowers, of course, their job is to form seeds, and the seeds have a lot of fluid pressure that builds up inside with the purpose of being able to eject seeds when something brushes up against them. I did have to give this one a little bit of a squeeze. The riper those pods get, the more readily the seeds will shoot out. I'll watch it one more time. It is really fun. Now, one thing I learned last year from my friend Corey is that if instead of letting the seeds fly, if you hold your hand over that pod and pop it, you know, as you're holding it, the seeds are edible, and they have a kind of a nutty flavor to them. You don't have to roast them or dry them out or anything. You can eat them fresh from the pod like that. I was having too much fun on this particular day popping the seed pods to even remember to eat a few, which is actually I usually do remember to eat. I'm always trying, you know, different things like this, but it's on my list to do the next time I see some jewelweed. You might want to try it too. See what you think of the flavor of the jewelweed seeds. So Bob, I have to thank you for this. This was a question Bob had when he was out doing his weekly birding reports. His question was, does swamp rose mallow come in different colors? You can see these flowers look quite different from each other. It turns out, so they are both in the genus hibiscus, which we tend to think of as a tropical type of a plant, but we do have some native hibiscus here in Illinois. And the color of the flower can vary from pink to white. What we use to determine the species that we're looking at is rather than the color of the flower, it's the shape of the leaves. So this pink flower on the left here, you can see it has a sword shaped leaf to it. There's no cuts or scallops or anything like that. It's just a pretty straightforward leaf. Now, we also have this hibiscus. So this one looks an awful lot like this one, until we look a little more closely at the leaves. This is the halberd-leaved rose mallow, and you can see it's the leaf has some pretty deep divisions in it. So this was growing over at the Japanese gardens over at Fabian. And look one more time, rose mallow. See how that leaf is kind of sword shaped. In this leaf is shaped like a halberd, whatever a halberd. I'm guessing a halberd might be a shield of some type. I'm not sure, but anyway, look at the leaves when you see our native hibiscus growing, and you'll be able to tell the difference between the two. Now, also at the Japanese garden, there's several structures. The Fabians had many interests and created a lot of different little buildings. As there's the bear cage, which actually at one time held a bear in it. It's now a picnic shelter over at the Forest Preserve, Fabian Forest Preserve. Well, this is a little structure within the Japanese garden, and if you look real close, there's bats up there. So we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's either 7 or 8. I couldn't tell that pile up there in the corner. I thought it was kind of neat. These are big brown bats, and they are, as we've talked about before, are oily bats. They tend to leave marks wherever they roost, and there was quite a bit of bat mark up on top here, where the grease in their fur has rubbed into the wood of the structure. And then of course there's marks below in the form of scat. Now here I was trying to capture the way bat scat shines. Uh-oh, there we go. It glints, there's a little reflection to it when the sun is hitting it. You can see it on this one here. The reason I point that out is bat scat and rodent droppings can appear similar until you get up close and personal. Bat scat, so bats, being insectivores, they have one of those twisty turny types of digestive systems, so you'll oftentimes see little tiny curls on the end of the scat, but because it's dropping from usually quite a distance, it can lose that curl. Here's or point on the end This one did not, but sometimes it falls and it bounces a little bit and you lose that shape, but you can still look for the sheen. That sheen is due to all the insect shells, the exoskeletons of what they've eaten. And if you break these down, you will often find little pieces, little legs and things like that. So this little tip on dividing up your scats between your rodents and your non-rodents, your flying mammals known as bats. So there was one piece here that I was going for the sheen. I wasn't going for the shape, but after I took the picture, I thought, well, look at that, it's a duck. Or a puffin. But there's even got a little eye right where an eye would be on a bird like that. So, but here you can see all the little parts shining in the afternoon sunshine there in the Japanese garden. All right. With that, I'm going to end this part of the program. And hello, Park District. We're going to stop the share. Still kind of creepy lighting effects here, but I did have another couple of slides I wanted to share with you to get back to that topic of praying mantises. Let me see if I can pull that up. There we go. Start this from current slide. So I tell you, the Chinese mantids are everywhere. We were down at WGN last Friday, and I captured last Wednesday. I was out at Primrose Farm most of the day for a program we were doing there, and I knew I needed to capture a Chinese mantid for this television segment we were going to do. And I was figuring that I would go up to Otter Creek Bend, which is where we always taught our 5th grade wetlands program, and we would always run into a few of these large mantids up there. But then Allison, the farm manager, said, well, we've got plenty around here too. So when the program was over, I walked over to the area of the farm where they have the apple trees growing, which also happens to be where they have the honeybee hives. And behind the beehives, there was a stand of, there was a lot of Canada goldenrod. It was kind of scrubby, but also some natives sticking out. There were some asters and things like that there too, things that honeybees would find useful at this time of year. Well, it took me about 2 seconds to find a big old Chinese mantid on the bushes there. I was actually eating an apple from the orchard and thought I could just casually reach over and pick up the Chinese mantid. Well, these things, they do have wings. Like here, this is not the one. There we go. This is not the one I caught. This is one from Otter Creek Bend from a couple of years ago. But Kim, I think if you're here tonight, I think you took this photo, but they do have wings, but the wings, they're not going to use them to fly away. What they do is they will flutter down into the vegetation that they're on. And from this angle, this particular mantid was sitting on the boardwalk, but right below it was bulrushes and I think some reed canary grass. When an animal colored like this drops down into vegetation like that, there's no chance of finding it. They blend in so incredibly well. So the first mantis out at the farm, I reached for it as I was eating my apple. I was a little too casual about it. It dropped down. I lost it. I thought, oh, shoot. How am I going to find another one that quickly? Well, I did find another one that quickly. That's how prevalent these things are. Another 2 seconds later, and there was another one. I have a feeling, since we were pretty close to the honeybee hive, I think those Primrose Farm Chinese mantids are eating the honeybees, in addition to whatever other bugs show up there on the vegetation. But these are, the females get to be, I would say, at least 4 inches long, and they have a strong set of jaws. Their mandibles can chew and break your skin. They also have spines, which you can't really see. You can see the claws on the feet, but there are also spines on the inside here of the forearm that that's what they use to impale their prey, but it's also what they can use to impale your finger. So I do have a couple of very, very tiny manted scars on my hand, not scars, but scabs, marks from where I grabbed onto the second one that I found. Well, I was thinking, because at home I still have I'll get back to that in a minute. We still have the Chinese, I'm sorry, the European mantis. And I thought, maybe I could keep the two side by side in separate containers and do some more behavior observations, that sort of thing. But my goodness, that Chinese mantid, she was used to eating honeybees and such. I actually went to the pet store and I bought a couple dozen crickets. She ate 6 crickets every day that I had her. And that's from now until however long she lives. That's going to be a lot of investment in crickets. So I actually took her out to the nature center. If you would like to see the Chinese mantid up close, well, one, you can go out and look for one yourself because they are really, really common right now, unfortunately. So, or you can look at the one that's in the container out at Hickory Knolls on the front desk. He happened to be one of our local viewers. Now, this picture, I did want to toss this out too. So this is what the egg case of the Chinese mantids looks like. To me, it sort of has always reminded me of a toasted marshmallow, or the great stuff, the expandable foam insulation, the stuff you buy in a can, if you need to fill in some space at your house. But this is how this species gets through the winter. The adults will die, but the eggs will survive. And then as things warm up next year, usually in May or so, is when these egg cases start to open up. Each one holds around 200 or so individual little mantids, and the first thing they do is they try to disperse, but along the way the smaller ones get gobbled up by the stronger ones, and then they set out over time. They set up a territory. They really don't move around too much once they've found a spot that's relatively free from competition, and then they go about their business eating, yes, insects, but also in the case of the Chinese species, they eat sometimes things with backbones, like baby mice and baby snakes. So they are considered an invasive species. They are so very interesting to look at, though. I could not bring myself to dispatch the one that I had. That's why it's on display at the Nature Center. But a great way to control the spread of the Chinese species is to look for these egg cases this winter. Right now, the females are very soon, they're going to start creating these cases. And then when it gets cold, they will die. The egg cases will hang on. They blend in, but as we get towards the end of winter, as we get into, say, late February and early March, before foliage comes back out again, that's the time to look for these things. And you can clip them. Sometimes you can just pull them off the stalks that they're on too. But if you take them home and you put them in the freezer, don't seal the bag up, let the air circulate around it. That's going to dry them out, and that will nullify, they'll kill the eggs, and maybe then we can help control the spread of this interesting but unfortunately invasive species. Now I did have one more little slide. So I made this video, this European, and so this is the one I showed you, I don't know how many weeks ago. This is the one that came in on our coworker Jill's pant leg after a day out in the field. And she molted twice to get to the stage that she's at now, much smaller than the Chinese. This girl measures a little, and you know, I named him Manny. Well, I did another count now that the insect is bigger. I counted again, and yeah, I got 8 abdominal segments, and so it's a female, and the abdomen is growing. I think they produce eggs whether they have mated or not, but she's made the rounds. She's done a lot of senior outreach with me. She's a little worse for wear because a couple of times her container, I didn't have her properly restrained in the vehicle, and but she's still hanging in there, and she's still eating. This was a cricket that she had today at the program I was at. They are so cool to watch. So the cricket, she popped the head off of it and ate that first. And look at how they use that foreleg. That's how they capture the prey, but then that's also how they hold on, and that's how they feed themselves too. If it wasn't for the fact that this room that I was giving this program in needed to be used for another program, I probably would have stayed there a lot longer and continued the video. It was, you can see all the mouth parts working too. She feeds on that cricket. She's probably excited to have something other than flies, because that's pretty much all I was feeding her for the last couple of months. But anyway, keep your eye out for both species. They are both introduced, but of the two, it's the Chinese that is the more invasive. All right, with that, I'm gonna stop the share, and I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. Does anybody have anything that they've noticed, that they have questions about, that they wanted to share?
I could share a silly thing that I did.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Last Saturday around 5 o'clock, I decided I was gonna go weed around the little rock edge in my backyard that goes around a good portion of the backyard around the flowers. Okay. And I went out there in shorts and no barefoot, and sat there for about, went around the yard for about 2 hours. And I now am blessed with a horrible amount of chigger bites all over my legs. It's just, I've had a few before. This is, yeah, it's just so itchy. And, of course, I guess I should have worn shoes and maybe some pants if I'm going to be sitting in the grass. But yeah, it was unexpected, the amount of them. And they're just itchy. And I looked up and they said Benadryl can help a little bit, but it'll go on for several days. And so just a warning, don't sit out in the grass for too long.
Well, it's funny, Laura, I did kind of the same thing, but I did have long pants on, but I was over at my mom's, and I had cut the grass, and I always change at her house. I've got a pair of old gym shoes in the garage, and then a pair of the short footy socks, because a lot of times I have flip-flops on or sandals on. So I had changed into those, and I mowed the grass, which I do every week, and I've never had any problems with chiggers doing that. But then I was trimming some of the bushes with the electric hedge trimmer. And this is because I'm just not a person who does well when they have to hurry. But in this case, I was fighting the setting sun. I wanted to get done before it was too dark to see anything. And the last thing I wanted to do was cut the cord, which I proceeded to do.
Oh, no.
swung the thing, and it makes that pop, and you see the spark, and
Oh,
son of a gun. And it wasn't completely dark out, but it wasn't as dark as it is now. It was probably, it was before sunset even, but the light was starting to fail. So I sat down right where I was. This was my father's hedge trimmer, and he had cut the cord too. So there was a repair. The plug was already a replacement plug, so it had screws on it. So I sat down on the grass, and I unscrewed everything, and I stripped the wire, and I screwed everything back together. By the time I got it all, and I did unplug it, by the way, before I did any of that, but I plugged it back in. I made sure it worked, but by then it was dark out, and it was too dark to continue. It wasn't the following day. It was the day. It was like 48 hours later. My ankles, because I had this gap. I just sat down in the grass, so there was the gap between the bottom of my pants and the top of the little footy sock, and then where the sock met the top of my foot. Oh my gosh, I've got two. They're better now, but they are just so itchy.
they are. And you think, oh, tomorrow will be better. No.
Yeah, no. I did. It's messy, but I did find some relief with because then I just put socks on over them. Then I put Vicks on the ones that weren't raw. And then somebody told me, gosh, what was it? Was it witch hazel? There was one of those other kind of older remedies that is supposed to be able to help. But boy, I feel for you, Laura, because
well, Greg and Kelly just sent in the chat too that Sting Ease, EZE, has helped.
Oh, Sting Ease.
Wonders. Yeah. So I'll give that a try. Thanks so much. Yeah.
I think we used to pack that in the nature camp.
Yeah.
When we were allowed to treat things.
Right. I should have thought of it actually.
I'll poke around. If we've got any laying around, I'll let you know.
I'll say
Thanks.
It's in our camping first aid kit. It's so good.
Oh, great. Because anything to help.
Well, yeah. And it's the last really bad case of chiggers I had was in August too. So it must be, this is the time of year that they are ready to have a good meal.
And thanks. Lesson learned.
The itching is from the tube they use to get to their dinner and line it with something. Yeah, I remember because there's some of the folklore says you seal them in with like nail polish or Vaseline or something like that, and that doesn't work because by the time we're feeling the itch, they're no longer there. But yeah, you're right, Ann. Maybe some of these cures will help melt that too. But they are so they're a different kind of itch than a mosquito bite, and then the welt itself is different too. It gets kind of, I don't know. I always use the word weepy. It's kind of a
and
reaction.
puffy and not fun.
And Chris says insect biting antigens from the chiropractor. Itching goes away in a few minutes. I didn't know there was such a thing. Insect biting antigens must be, well, so the Chinese praying mantis that I was holding, it didn't break the skin, but it did rough it up, and I could see what I guess would be the saliva, whatever the juices are an insect has in its mouth. And I did have a little reaction on my index finger from where it was chewing. And maybe some antigens would help that too. Oh, look, Kelly's even
Can
giving us
I-
a link.
Can I share with everybody the picture of you getting the picture of the bats?
Sure. Let me see if I can.
Okay, I'm not good at this. I'm gonna start my video.
Well, and
Can
let
you
me
see it?
hold on. Do it again, Susie. I think you need to. I'm going to be quiet so that you keep talking.
Okay, what do I have to do? Can you see it?
Yep. Oh, let's see. I'm going to be quiet, but
Okay.
yes, doing that
This,
work.
this is Pam, and Lisa is holding a flashlight so that Pam could get the pictures of the bats that you guys saw tonight. Hopefully you can see that.
Sorry, I laughed. Took the picture away again. Oh, that's we look kind of like we're yeah. You go ahead and talk, Susie, so you get the.
No, that's it. I don't need to talk. I just laughed.
Well, it was so often when bats are roosting, even like in the picnic shelter over at Johnson's Mound, it's pretty high up, and where they were roosting there at the Japanese Gardens was still above our heads, but it was almost within reach. So that's funny. Thanks for sharing, Susie, and it looks like
No problem. I just thought people should know the extents to which you go to.
That's
get
right,
all these
doggone it.
pictures.
No, that was a fun outing, and now we got fun pictures too. Oh, thanks, Susie. Well, and so over in the chats, Kelly and Greg have given the link, and then also available on Amazon if you want to try stingies. And then Chris has given us the name of the insect antigen, Energique, ENERGIQUE, homeopathic remedy that you put on your tongue, and it takes the sting, the itch away. That's really cool. See, I always learn from you guys. I really appreciate the give that we all, the willingness to give that we all seem to have. With that, is there anything else? If not, it's a lovely evening out. I did put a jacket on. It is a little bit cooler, but if you have a chance to get out yet this evening, go ahead and enjoy one of our remaining summer evenings that we have left. Won't be too much longer. We'll be doing the fireside chats again. Didn't mean to say that. Everybody, appreciate your time this evening. Have a lovely rest of your week, and see you back here next Tuesday.
Thanks, Pam.
Right,
Thank you, Pam.
Take care.
Thank you, Pam.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pam. Thank you.
Have a good one. It's free, hopefully.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.